stage. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. It's Deliverability Academy number 2. And ladies and gentlemen, an amazing guest. Oh, super excited. We've got another Deliverability Academy today, ladies and gentlemen. Let's throw that up on the screen so you can take a look. So we're talking about the Authentication and Microsoft Center's updated requirements that are coming down the line. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and you know them, they're my favorite people. We actually have one new special guest with us today. She's just joined us, but we'll get to her in just a moment. But ladies and gentlemen, want to talk about Mrs. Natalie Hayes, Senior Product Marketing Manager, my co-host, my not crime but partner in email, I guess you could say. We don't commit any crimes.
No email crimes. Goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
No email crimes. An email good. An email goodness.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. And ladies and gentlemen, you know her from all over the world. She is spam's worst nightmare. She's hilarious. Her memes are amazing. She's our new deliverability advocacy specialist, Allison Goody. Allison, how's it going?
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for the intro. I'm excited to get started and start talking before I forget what DMARC stands for. I've been practicing to my dogs. They're like, stop talking about alignment. So pumped to be here. Excited that everyone is also here, and let's do this thing.
I'm happy to hear that you've been practicing with your dogs, because my husband is like, honey, if I hear you talk about Yahoogle one more time.
Yeah, so for context, Natalie and I both have husbands named Zach. So like my Zach is like, stop saying DKIM to me. And I'm like, I can't. I'll never stop.
It's not possible.
Like, please, what are you talking about? but today we'll exactly talk about that in just a moment. But real quick, some housekeeping items and fun stuff. Real quick, just want to give a shout out to all the amazing people that we got out here going on here. I saw some people from my hometown in Houston, Texas. Good to see you. Good to see you. From Denmark. Good to see you. From New York. Good morning. Good morning. Good afternoon. The Netherlands. Love it. Love it. Good to see you. Good to see you. West Sweden. Didn't know there was a West Sweden. Good to know. Canada. Alberta, Canada. All right. Mexico, Hong Kong, love it, love it, love it. Pakistan, Brazil, awesome. Slovakia, okay, I gotta move on. I'll keep reading them all day. But real quick, I want to talk about our back end team because they're amazing as always. Quick shout out to Em. She'll be dropping blog links and articles related to the upcoming Microsoft Office sender requirements. She'll be dropping those as well. And then we also got Amber and Efe helping us out in the Q&A section. So big round of applause for them. We couldn't do this without them. So thank you guys. You guys rule. Absolutely rule. All right. If you can't tell, my tea has finally kicked in. All right. Here we go. Shall we? And let's get into the nitty gritty, shall we? So let's talk about this agenda. All right. We're going to talk about email authentication. That's coming up. Those 3 types. Natalie, how are we saying this correctly? Is it?
Are you making fun of me for the EA webinar?
No, I'm talking about the Yahoogle-soft.
Yahoogle-soft. Yes, you are saying it correctly, Thomas. If a made-up acronym can be said, or mishmash of brands can be correct, yes, you're saying it correctly.
Love it. And then we'll talk about what's different this time with Microsoft joining the game along with Google and Yahoo. And then my favorite time of the day, Q&A.
Coffee. Oh,
coffee. No, my favorite time of the day is 4:00. And then real quick, someone just asked, is this going to be recorded? I'm going to say this for the front of the class and for the back of the class. Yes, it's going to be recorded. Do not worry. All you got to do is come back here to this landing page, or you can also wait for our emails that you'll get from Julia later on this afternoon with this replay. It'll also be in our YouTube page as well, and we'll drop you the links for that as well. So please do not worry. You don't need to bring your AI recorder in here to record this whole thing. Don't worry. We're going to send it to you. Be human. Be present with us. Can you skip through the comedy? No, Jay, you can't skip through the comedy. We're humans. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to keep this live and fun for you because everyone else, hey, we're trying to stand out and be the best. All right, ladies and gentlemen, All right. So first and foremost, we want to read the room. Let's read the room, shall we? Tell me how you really feel. Tell me. All right. So with that being said,
I'm feeling good. I mean, if you want me to tell you how I really feel. But what I really feel is like we should get to the meat of it. Let's talk about email authentication, shall we?
Shall we? But
to start with that, it's a pop quiz. So threw in a nice throwback for all the millennials in chat with the Pop Secret Pop Quiz. Our pop quiz is, what are the 3 big authentication protocols that you are really required to be using as an email sender?
All right, check out that poll. Check it out. It should be popping up right now on Goldcast, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to go and throw that up on the screen so we can take a look at that. Let's see what everyone's thinking.
Yeah, what is it? Who's to say? Don't worry. This will be put on your permanent it won't. I can't make that joke. But fill in all the Scantron bubbles completely. Make sure your name is spelled correctly. Be sure to hand in your Scantron, feed it into the machine the right way if they actually let you do that.
Spell your last name right.
Spell your last name right. Otherwise, you won't get a grade.
Yeah. But yes, those are the big 3.
You guys are making me sad. No, those aren't the big 3 main authentication methods. Gmail, Yahoo, and Microsoft. That ain't it. It's also not DNS, MX, and IP. You guys are making me so sad. Well, then I guess it's important. I guess it's important that we're having here. This. Yeah, it's good that you're here then.
Yeah. There's no shame in being wrong. If you all knew it already, we could just shut it down right now. There'd be no point.
You know what? That is fair. If it came back 100% SPF DKIM DMARC, I'd be like, well, later.
Oh man. All right, good to know. Good enough from the folks. Good to know. All right, we're gonna go and stop sharing that and get into this good stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for the participation, everybody. Appreciate that. We just always want to see what's going on and kind of, like I said, read the room. So, all right. Let's see here. Gonna go and let Nalia jump into this part.
For sure. Although before we get into that, Peter did say no mention of BIMI then. BIMI is important, but we can get into that a little bit later. These are kind of the 3 big ones that are like major requirements. You should absolutely do BIMI if you can. That I always like seeing company logos in my inbox. But that is not the main focus of today. No, the main focus of today, since a lot of people don't know, is about SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. Those are the 3 major authentication protocols for email right now in the space. So just kind of a quick overview or a good, let's talk about these really quick as like a TLDR. SPF confirms whether, your emails are coming from you. DKIM confirms that the messages weren't altered in transit. There wasn't some sneaky business going on. And then DMARC basically says, are you leveraging both SPF and DKIM? Are you doing everything correctly? Which is really, really great. And what's fascinating, and I guess that also speaks volumes to what we're talking about today, is that 25% of people don't know if their company is using email authentication, which is pretty interesting. But honestly, that makes sense, right? As a marketer who came into this space a couple of years ago, I didn't know what any of this was, right? I didn't know what an SPF DKIM or a DMARC did, nor did I know that it was a part of email. So it's not that surprising, especially for marketers, right? We spend a lot of our time making sure that the emails look nice, that they sound nice, that they reach our customers. We're making sure that the transactional email layouts look good, all of that good stuff, right? But outside of that, in terms of the nitty gritty and the back end details, we don't know those things. And you typically won't know those things until you kind of start getting into the email space. So not surprising, but luckily we're here today to kind of talk through all of it. So no worries. And I guess, right, we can kind of just walk right into it and talk about each one of these a little bit more specifically. So Sender Policy Framework and DKIM both kind of came around at around the same time in the early 2000s. So I was still in 4th grade playing Pokemon, all that good stuff. I was a major gamer, still am. And with that said, there were people much smarter than me making sure that emails were already kind of going through the paces. So with that, what does the Sender Policy Framework do? So essentially, An SPF record is something that is essentially passed between your receiving mail server and your DNS. So essentially what happens, right? Say I'm sending an email to Gmail. What it does is that it goes, hey, and it talks. I mean, it doesn't talk to my DNS. You get what I mean. It checks with my DNS records and goes, hey, do you have an SPF record? Which is almost like an ID card. So it's like, if I'm trying to get into a club or go somewhere, if I'm trying to go to Costco, right, and they want to see my membership card, they will ask for it. They want to see my beautiful face on my phone or on my physical card. And then they go, nice. And then they let me in. Great. Then I can buy everything that I want in bulk forever. Thank you, Costco. That doesn't necessarily mean with your emails you get to buy everything from Costco, but that does essentially tell them that you are who you say you are, and you have a better chance of getting to the mailbox, landing in the inbox. If you don't have that, right, if the SPF record doesn't match, then they're like, hey, whoa, 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 hey, and then they won't let you in. is essentially the broad strokes of that. Right now, that is only one method of authentication, right? Because as with real ID cards, though I don't know why anyone would do this for Costco exactly, but they're fakes, right? People make fake IDs all the time. Should not do that, right? But people will essentially try to spoof you, look like someone that they're not, just to be able to get to their customer base. And so this is where domain keys identified mail, which is DKIM for short, also kind of comes into play as this secondary measure of authentication, right? So essentially you have a DKIM signature. So it's like, you hand wrote on your ID card. And then it will essentially check your DNS to make sure that like, hey, do you have your SPF and your DKIM, right? Those are two different methods of basically saying that you are who you say you are. If there is no match on DKIM, straight to jail. You go to spam. You do not collect $200. You do not go past go. But if it is a match, you get to go in, which is really great. Now, for a long time, a lot of email senders would essentially try to have like one or the other, and then they never updated. And then they're like, it's fine. I did it once. Like, as with your driver's license or with your Costco membership card, right? You have to renew it, right? You have to go in and renew things. You have to go in and make sure that those things are updated. But a lot of people still weren't doing that, which made it very, very difficult, right? And so finally, after much time and much grievance, the mailbox service provider said enough. And this started primarily with Yahoo and Gmail. And that's really where something that was already in the space, but something that became a much major player after these announcements, like a year ago, 2 years ago, which is DMARC. But I'm actually going to let Allison speak to DMARC more than myself.
Oh, good. Thank you so much. I've been practicing. So DMARC, I actually really like this. And the more I think about it, the cooler I think that it is, because DMARC actually fills in a gap that SPF and DKIM both kind of left behind, introducing the concept of alignment. So alignment means making sure that the domain in the visible from address matches the domain that had passed SPF or DKIM. Spoofers love to sneak behind the scenes with lookalike domains, and DMARC kind of closes that loophole and makes sure that you are who you say you are. So just because you passed SPF or DKIM doesn't mean that you really are. This checks that. So in order to pass, you need SPF or DKIM to pass. The one that passed must be aligned with the from domain. And DMARC actually only requires SPF or DKIM. However, where this kind of comes into play and why we're talking about it today is that Gmail, Microsoft, and Yahoo are all saying, hey, we actually want all three. We want SPF, we want DKIM, and we want DMARC, even though DMARC just requires the one. And so I think that's been a little bit confusing for some folks. So I hope that we're getting to clear that up for you today. Some super cool things about DMARC are, to me, it mimics email in a way. Like email, you can send email and you can receive mail. With DMARC, you get to both receive reports on mail that fails, and you also get to tell mailbox providers what to do with that mail that has failed. So you get to set a DMARC policy that either says, if mail fails, just reject it. Send me a report, but also bounce it. You can say quarantine it, send it to the junk folder, but also tell me about it. And you can say, hey, do nothing. I just want to monitor it. I'm keeping an eye on it for now. Right now, the mailbox providers are not requiring anything beyond the none policy. They don't make you quarantine or reject. But we have a feeling that because they're talking about this now, they're going to move towards a stricter enforcement. So now is a great time to start monitoring before you move into that quarantine or reject policy. You'll be receiving reports once you have this DMARC policy set up. That will help you see legit mail from tools that you may have forgot about. You can see misconfigured partners or platforms, and you can also see spoofing attempts. So I just think it's super cool because it's like you send email and then you also get email back in response that tells you which things went wrong. And if you are receiving reports and you're like, what the heck do I do with all this XML? Well, we have good news for you because, Natalie, who do we partner with?
Yeah. So for those of you who are like, that sounds like a lot. It is, right? And I think everyone in the industry can be like, yeah, it is a lot. But there are a lot of different partners out there. There's DMARC, but and Redsift that are both kind of in the space that can help manage quite a bit of that. We partner with Redsift for those of you who want to like have someone like really kind of sit on top of that, manage it, and help with all of that. And we have a direct integration with them too. So if you want to kind of keep on top of all of those reports, that's available through the Mailgun app. But then also if you need like a little bit more help, you are also more than welcome to go talk to them. They can help make sure that everything is spick and span, which is really great. We love Redsift and DMARC in this house. But really any email player out there that's helping with that, really, and whatever best fits your budget, right? Because I know that like sometimes we talk about these things, people are like, they get scared about the money aspect. Totally get it, right? These are times, TM. So pick the solution that's best for you. We have options available, but if they don't work out, no sweat. You can still send email with us, no worries. But Mailgun and Redsift would love to have you. Now, that said, right, Yahoooglesoft. What is the same? So Yahoooglesoft, if you haven't guessed, is a mishmash of Yahoo, Google, and Microsoft. Now, I know that Yahoogle was a industry phrase that was colloquially said. It was also internally said here at the Mailgun office, to much chagrin to people within the office, depending on who you asked. So what's the same, right? And Allison spoke to this a bit, but all three of them are essentially saying, right, like you got to have all three. Now, Yahoo and Gmail came out with this, like they announced this, I think, late 2023, if my memory serves me right. And they essentially said, hey, you need to get in alignment in early 2024. And not to like deep dive into a history lesson, but when that happened, everyone freaked out. Everybody freaked out. Email senders were like, what do we do? Help. And then email service providers like Microsoft were like, well, one, like we have to make sure that senders on our platform are able to, one, be able to get that alignment, right? And how can we make it as easy as possible? And so Mailgun was doing, really everyone in the industry was seeing how they could respond and how they could get into compliance. So there was a huge push on that. If you've been working in email for the last like 3 to 4 years, you remember this. Everyone was kind of freaking out. And I know that we did a ton of work to make sure that we had a lot of education, a lot of understanding around these authentication methods. But that said, right, earlier this year, Microsoft said, well, hold up, we also would like to require all three. So the good news is that if you lived through the panic, right, of the initial Yahoo Gmail changes, for the most part, and I say for the most part because there are some caveats that we will get into here in a few minutes, you're in a good spot, right? So just as a recap for those of you who maybe were not familiar with this during the time, this is a huge requirement for anyone who says over 5,000 emails per day. Most businesses hit this. So unless you're like, a little bit smaller of a business or you're just starting up, right? Then you're technically not required. But my best advice I can give you is even if you're not hitting this mark, at some point you will. And this is one of those that is better to have it set up. It is better to have it done if you don't already have it before you meet this threshold, because when you start meeting this threshold, that's when you're going to start running into problems with not, landing in the inbox and things like that, landing in spam and your message is getting rejected, right? So For SPF, they must pass for the sending domain, and your domain's DNS records should accurately list the authorized IP addresses and hosts. For DKIM, right, it must pass and validate the email's integrity and authenticity, right? Those, since they're very, very similar, same, but different, you need to be in alignment. You need to make sure that you're complying, right? And then with DMARC, this is where there's a little bit of a weird flux going on, right? Where it's like you at least need to have a P-none. And then you have to align with either SPF or DKIM, but really all three, right? If you're already in here worrying about these kind of things, just get all three of them done, right? You at least have to have a P-none, but just as a caveat, right? And we don't know what we don't know. They could change this to be reject, right? They could change this to any other sort of standard that they would require at any time, right? So this is a good moment to kind of take a look at your policy and go, well, what best fits my business right now? And what's going to help kind of preserve my reputation long term? So those are the three that are the same. But Microsoft also has some differing requirements. I put Clippy in here selfishly for myself because, one, I miss him. What a little guy. I would trade any AI assistant for Clippy. If nobody got me, I know Clippy got me. But Allison, what's going to be different with Microsoft's requirements for senders?
Well, for one thing, Clippy retired, which is a huge bummer. So hate that for us. But I think one super cool thing that Microsoft did was the real only requirement that they put in their blog post announcement was the authentication piece. But they then named a bunch of recommendations. And I think these recommendations are super interesting and they're not really surprising. They're all things that we already knew and have been telling senders to do the whole time. And this is Microsoft a little bit more explicitly saying these are the things that go into our reputation calculations. These are the things that can help you reach the inbox. And merely meeting the authentication standard is not the thing that's going to guarantee inbox placement. It's just kind of a bare minimum. And so if you've joined a deliverability webinar before, if you've seen anything I've ever said on LinkedIn, if you hear me talking in my sleep, these are all the things that I talk about, which are list management. So when you're managing your list, the list of people that you're emailing, you need to make sure that your unsubscribe link is functional. If someone clicks it, it actually unsubscribes them. They no longer receive email after they have clicked that. Gmail and Yahoo were a little bit more explicit and said they wanted a functional one-click unsubscribe. They wanted that list unsubscribe header. Microsoft has not said that. They just said that they want the unsubscribe link working. So theoretically, you could do more clicks, but why would you want to? We don't want to add friction to that process. If someone is trying to get off the list, let them. The spam button is always there, and that's way more damaging to your reputation. Unsubscribes are reputationally neutral. They do not hurt you unless you don't unsubscribe the people after they click that button. So Microsoft is saying, get them off the list if they want off. They're also saying, hey, you should probably regularly remove people who are not engaging. That's been a totally standard recommendation in the deliverability industry. People have often asked, well, where are you getting this guidance? What if these people, what if my sales cycle is 10 years and they start engaging after then? They're probably not going to, and Microsoft is saying, hey, stop doing that, pay closer attention. Another thing they want is transparency. If you are in the US, CAN spam also covers this. Laws around the world also cover it. And now Microsoft is kind of joining the ranks and saying your subject lines need to accurately reflect the content of the message. Don't be misleading, don't be deceptive, and also get consent. You need permission to send email. In the US, that is not a law. In fact, in very few places is permission actually required. But ESPs like Mailgun and elsewhere do require permission in order for you to send mail through our platform. Permission is the #1 indicator of future engagement. So get it and send to people who really want to hear from you. This is kind of my personal favorite one, which is letting recipients reply. They want you to ensure that the from or reply to address is valid, reflects your true sending domain, and can receive replies. Now, you don't have to write back to those replies, but you should at least accept them because, again, email is a two-way street. If you can send, you should be able to receive. And sometimes you get some really good feedback from that engagement, and it's also good for your reputation that people are replying to you. If you are worried about the volume of replies, you don't want to be inundated, you can go ahead and set up an autoresponder that just says hey, thanks for writing back to us. This isn't a channel we monitor. Here's our help form. Here's our FAQs, whatever kind of thing, and redirect people away from there. But you should still be able to accept those replies. And then finally, we covered this a little bit previously, but I think it's very important to keep in mind, the authentication piece is just part of it. If you have SPF and DKIM and DMARC, that is not like a guarantee of inbox placement. There are still several dozen to 100 reputation signals that mailbox providers like Microsoft are measuring. And so they have said in this blog post, hey, we reserve the right to take negative action, including filtering or blocking outright if you are not compliant, especially if you're not authenticating or performing basic list hygiene. So they're kind of hedging their bets here. They didn't say they're requiring list hygiene, but they are threatening, hey, we could still block you if you don't perform list hygiene. And so I think that is something that we all knew was happening, and I appreciate them coming out and saying it more explicitly, that is something they're going to be doing. So those are kind of the major differences that Microsoft is saying, and I'm honestly here for it. I am a legacy Hotmail user since 1998, and I look forward to my mailbox being a little bit more pristine. I am hoping that they crack down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, before we go into the recap, right? Because geez.
Whoa.
We're going too fast. I missed Clippy too much. So Thomas and I had the pleasure of attending Inbox Expo a couple of weeks ago, and it was really interesting because there were some representatives from inbox service providers, and there were questions, right, during a couple of panels of like, hey, like what's going on with the bulk sender requirements, right? And like all across the board, they were like, do it. Like, we're not going back on this. This isn't something we're changing our minds on, right? Like, if anything, it was, and it was so well said. I forget who said it, but they were like, look, this was a reckoning in the making for a long time. And it was something that all of them had wanted to do for such a long time, and that they're like, if anything, it will become more strict, because like, look, like, I don't know if you guys are looking at your own inboxes, but even with like all of these changes, like sometimes I'm like, how did this get here? Right? Like an email that I was just like, who's this coming from? Right? Like just complete out of the blue, nowhere. And granted, like I'm sure in comparison to before these changes, it was way more wild, hindsight's 2020. But this is something that people are still talking about, and they will continue to enforce. They do plan on eventually making changes and making it more strict and more explicit. So something to keep in mind. The other thing too that was really interesting that was discussed about at Inbox Expo, just because like not everyone can attend those industry events, so I like being able to.
I wasn't there. Yeah. I'm like, I was asked for your notes.
Yeah, so like I like to give some of this information back, right? But another big thing that was discussed was like preference centers, and like what does the individual person want, right? And this is like across the board. This is email, this is RCS, this is MMS, this is any way that you talk to your customer, right? Like you need to give them a preference center of how often you can actually reach them, right? It's almost like, if I had a friend, and I was like, hey, like we're going to be besties, right? Like, let's like exchange phone numbers and things like that. They'd be like, oh, okay, word, right? And I'll be like, cool, I'll message you tomorrow. But then my message to them tomorrow was like 50 messages, like very quick, rapid fire. Hey, what's up? How you doing? You want to hang out in a month? What's going on? I really like this. Here's a meme I sent you. Here's another meme I sent you. Here's a TikTok. That's much. Right. So at that point they would go, hey, can you like maybe not send me like a bunch of rapid fire messages? Like this is a little crazy. And then if you're a good friend, right, which I am, I wouldn't do this, but I would be like, oh my God, you're right, I'm so sorry. Or it could even be like hey, I'm at work, right? Like I can't respond to all of these messages. You're going crazy.
Just
with
the
it.
one word, stop.
Unsubscribe. Yeah. just text my friend back, unsubscribe. Like it just like no more, no boss. Right. But like a good friend would go, you're so right, I'll talk to you later. Right. Or like, hey, I'll message you tomorrow. And then I message them once tomorrow. Think about it a little bit like that, right? Like, yes, you are. I mean, we all work here. You might own your own business. You might be a part of a business. You might be a part of a really big company. But the fact of the matter is, right, like communication is communication. And so we need to be respectful of how people want to be communicated to. So if that is providing a list unsubscribe or an easy way to unsubscribe from your emails, that's fine, right? If they don't want to hear from you, that's fine. Like them unsubscribing is not the worst thing in the world. the worst thing in the world is them marking you as spam, right? Like if we're gonna, apples to oranges on all of this. But if you can, like, have a preference center created for them for how they want to be reached out across all of your channels. Email is just one. So they might have a different preference for whether or not they want to receive SMS messages or emails, right? I know me, just send me an email. Please don't text me. But some people, and usually like younger generations, actually are like, hey, you're fine to text me. I don't care. But like, I never check my email. So it really is a bit of a gambit. And then again, like just talking about sunset policies, like if you're not sure about how often you should be cleaning your list, like take a look at it a couple times a year, like 3 times a year. Just run it through a validation product or validator, I guess. Sorry, I'm losing my words there, but just run like a list validation. Remove those who are coming back as low engagement. And even then, like you could take it a step further. Like if people like really love your emails, make a separate email list for just the people who are like active engagers, who are always opening your emails. And like, if you want like your marketers to have a fun new project, like think about like what type of emails you could send those people who want to hear from you all of the time, right? Like they're going to be more honest with you than someone who checks your emails like, I don't know, once a quarter. Like talk to those people and get their feedback. Like, again, we're all human beings, right? So let's treat each other like human beings, I guess, is my end of my soapbox there.
And it's a lovely soapbox. I also think that this is such a great time to focus on the opt-in process. That's kind of my bread and butter. It's a big thing I focus on when I talk to senders. But I think, in your analogy, if you met somebody and you're like, hey, let's be best friends, you could say, hey, I like don't text that much. So like if you're sending me a steady stream of text, I'm probably not going to answer all 50 in a row. So if you're collecting email addresses, you can say, hey, we send a daily newsletter. That might be too heavy for you. Would you prefer weekly updates, a monthly digest, something along those lines? Because it's so much easier to set those expectations correctly and then meet them and prove that you are legitimate in who you said you were, rather than kind of like come on too strong and then have to back up and figure out how to recalibrate that relationship back to a healthy level. Hopefully you were forgiving of your friend who sent 50 rapid fire texts. But from an email perspective, a brand really only has a chance to make that first impression the first time. And so if you sign up and immediately get inundated, that's probably not going to be your first stop for when you're shopping again. You might think, oh my God, I'm going to get back on their list. They're going to start emailing me all the time. And so if you don't want to lose that interest, that potential conversion, just being upfront with what kind of frequency and content you're going to be sending can really help set that relationship off on the right foot. And so I think it's so important to kind of do those cleanup efforts afterwards. But if you can start clean from the beginning, that's even better. You can kind of experiment with the frequency and stuff later, but let people know what to expect and don't come on too strong from the beginning, because who wants to ruin that relationship when it could have been a very solid and fruitful one over the long term.
Yeah. And the other added piece to that too is like, whatever, like when we talk about like setting that opt-in early, like even though that's like a huge thing in email, like do the same for the rest of your messaging channels as well, right? Like if I say like, look, I don't really want to hear from you that much, right? In my email preferences, and then you go, you didn't say anything about SMS. But no, that's not me. That's not me going text me out the wazoo, right? Like typically people's preferences are going to be like across the board from a brand, right? Like how often they want to hear from somebody. Cause I know that I've had a couple of brands where like I say, hey, like only email me like once a month. And then they go, got it. And then I'm getting like multiple.
I heard text you all the time.
I'm like, no, don't text me all the time. So really like what's nice about email being an older sort of digital communications channel is like a lot of that like etiquette can be applied to all of your messaging channels. So if you're like not really sure like where to start in a new messaging channel, like let email be your guide, right? Like let email be kind of like that wonderful like Obi-Wan Kenobi figure for the rest of your digital communications. And then it at that point, right? Like then you're setting it up for like consent, constant, feedback, all of that good stuff. It really goes a long way. And then lastly, before I move on from here, I know I'm yapping, but reply to addresses, right? Don't have a do not reply address, right? If we didn't say it explicitly enough, no reply addresses, especially like when I get them personally. Think about it this way, right? Like if I get an email receipt for something I didn't buy, right? Like maybe I didn't realize that like I'm, opted into buying something or things like that. And I get a do not reply from a business. And I'm like, well, I don't even know that I bought this. And I'm being told from the address, right, that, oh, well, you can't reply to this email. But I didn't buy thing, right? Like that's panic. And then that immediately puts me in a negative sentiment, right, with your brand. That immediately makes me go, well, I need to get in contact with someone. And now it's annoying because I'm going to go to the website, I'm going to try to find customer service, I'm going to scream representative into the phone, and like I will be very nice to the person on the other end of the support line. Everyone should treat support people with grace. But I'm still not going to be happy about it. Like I'm going to be like, hey, I got this email that I bought something from a no reply address. What is this, right? It would have been much easier if I could just reply to the email and go, hey, I didn't buy this, right? And however you want to set that up, like in the back end, whether it's through inbound routing to your support channels or what have you, that is way better of a customer experience than basically being like a guy who shouts at me from across the street and then like books it. Like what? Like that's so much. I couldn't think of like a better analogy for that, but it really is like being yelled at from across the street and then the guy just like leaves.
I mean, to go back to your analogy, if you met this person, they texted you 50 times and you were going to write back like, whoa, slow it down, and you couldn't reply, it would seem like so uneven and just
or if you've got
super
questions.
unfair.
It's like the other day we were talking on Emails Not Dead about this exactly because we were talking to Naomi West about it from Customer I/O, but it's like Eric Trinidad received a city email from the city, and it was a no reply, and he's like, I have questions here. Hold on, wait, like you're still trying
I would
to,
like many reply, thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. There's some chat in the channel, and we can cover this a little bit later. So to be clear, a no reply at domain could theoretically accept a reply. To me, it's more about the sentiment. If I see that as a shopper, I might think, oh, they're not going to accept my reply, or this is just going to bounce. So why bother? I think there's a little bit of that like go away aspect to it. And so if that's something you're considering implementing, think twice. Like what is the kind of sentiment you're trying to leave with your customers? Is this really the way you want them to think about your brand, that you reject their potential advances to learn more about your brand, or even get off your mailing list, or ask a question about a product? So conceptually that may be technically valid and able to receive replies, but think about it from a human readable format. Do you really want to turn off your potential buyers that way? And do as we say, not as we do. I don't work at Goldcast. I didn't send this email. If I worked at Goldcast, I would say stop doing no reply, and they would accept the replies and listen to me. So sorry.
Yeah, but to that point, right? If you are using a platform that is sending no reply emails like on behalf of your business, do what we did and put a contact email in the emails that you send out from that platform. Because then that way, right, like you're able to essentially kind of go like, hey, we know that's not a great look, but you can contact us here.
We want to hear from you.
We want to hear from you, right? Yeah. Exactly. And we do hear from you guys because people do actually use that linked contact email. So thank you, Julia, for adding that in chat. You the best. Anyway.
The best.
As much as I would love to keep soapboxing, it's time to recap. So, authenticity is everything. So when we talk about this, right, and I feel like we honestly, I feel like the last 10 to 15 minutes of us talking about all these different examples really kind of hammered this home the most. You must implement SPF, DKIM, and DMARC if you want to reach the inbox. But on top of that, there's so much more that you need to be doing. It doesn't guarantee inbox placement, right? So like, do your emails look good? Are they readable? Are your images presenting correctly, right? Do your links work. That's when like email QA and stuff and kind of like the Mailgun Inspect and email on acid side of the business like comes into play, right? Like, are you testing your emails? Are they accessible? Can everybody read them, right? Are they going to be in compliance with the Email Accessibility Act, right? Like, are we meeting all of those marks? And then secondly, do the people that you're emailing want to even see these emails? If you just, and God forbid you do this, don't buy an email list like right out the gate. But if you are like using email lists that you have no idea how this data was collected and you're emailing those people, if you have no idea, the recipient also probably doesn't have a good idea of it either. So you have two human beings going, I don't know how I got here. That's embarrassing. Let's not do that. Let's avoid doing that if possible, right? So like make sure you understand where that data collection is coming from. If it's your website, your app, whichever, as long as you are explicitly getting that data and people are consenting to give you that data, that's the other really big important thing. You're setting yourself up for success in that regard. And then also like have fun with your content. Like I could sit here and say all day, like, you know, yes, we need to all be in compliant and things like that, but like make your emails interesting. Like talk about your business in a way that maybe people haven't previously thought of. Like make it fun to read, right? Like I use this example all the time, but like there are a bunch of like daily t-shirt vendors that I follow, and I adore the daily t-shirt emails that I get. I love seeing the new designs that people are putting on t-shirts. I love like that's a part of like my morning coffee, which sounds like so nerdy, but I love it, right? Like it's fun. It's something that I get to look at really quick before I start looking at all of my meetings or thinking about what I'm going to do in my workday. Like think about that. And as a part of that, in extension, like when are you sending those emails? Like when do people want to be hearing from you? Are most of your engagers looking at your emails in the morning? Are they more evening people? Where are they based geographically? Are they mostly in the EU? Are they in the APAC region? Are they in the US? Like these are all things that you can consider. And think about that, and then think about how your emails can fit into that sending cadence, the time, the day, all of that good stuff. I know it sounds complicated. I know it sounds like a lot, but it really helps to map all of this out as a marketer, so that you get a really good idea of like just when and how you are talking to people. First impressions are everything, but then also the cadence after the fact, and then what you bring to the table means that much more. So be authentic, be you. Don't get too crazy with it, but like have fun. So anyway,
keep it creative, y'all. Keep it creative.
And then
I also think always keep in mind, what did people sign up for in the first place? Because I think senders often are like, oh, I have this huge list. What should I do with it? And it's like, well, what did you tell them you were going to do with it? Because for, you know, if you sign up for a daily t-shirt update and they start sending you like, we just introduced shorts, we've got jackets, we've got surfboards. You're like, that's so cool, but that's not part of my morning coffee, and I wasn't really interested in that. And so you just have to be really cautious, because you don't want to turn off someone like Natalie, who's a super engaged user, by like getting too funky with the stuff that you started sending. So the user is always in control. They always have the ability to report mail as spam, so it's kind of your obligation as the sender to make sure that you're giving them things they want to engage with based on what you know of them.
Yeah. And by extension of that, right, like you can like use that email, like in this example, if they were like, hey, we are about to start a new like daily sticker email. You wanna get those emails too? Like ask, like just ask, right? Before you start sending any of that. And you can send an email out that basically asks, and then it sends them up to a preference center or a sign up link. There are ways that you can build in like building those email lists from your current work streams. And honestly, it works a lot better, especially if you have like your super engaged users separated. More often than not, they're going to go, oh, I'd love to see stickers. Thank you. So just something to think about. But do we want to rehash our no reply spiel?
Yeah,
Allison?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And I do think we covered this in good detail. And I know there's some questions and maybe we won't be able to answer them because, for instance, we were just at a meeting, some folks from the Deliverability team. We were in Canada to meet with some of the mailbox providers. Microsoft was there. They were a little bit cagey. You know, they don't want to give us all the ins and outs of how they're calculating reputation, of the things that they're looking at, of how they're verifying that any of this is set up. They did toe the line about do not, you need to let people reply to you. They did not say how they're going to be verifying that. So we don't know if they're actually going to be like testing, does the address receive replies? We don't know if they're going to be looking up an MX record to see if it has one. We just know that you need to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, not try to like, reverse engineer and figure out how Microsoft is actually going to verify you're doing these things. Just do it right because it's the right thing to do. So if you're sending email, you need to be able to receive it too. That is the beauty of email. That is what makes it so powerful. That's why it's lasted so long. If you want a billboard, buy a billboard. I can't unsubscribe from that. It's going to greet me when I'm on the highway. Email is not a billboard. It is a communication channel. It's great for generating revenue, but it's more of a contributor to that than the kind of driving force behind it. Email is for building relationships. And if those relationships result in revenue for your business, that's amazing. So if you're sending email, just be sure that people can reply to you. You don't have to write back to all of them, but you do have to at least accept those replies. And if you can figure out a good way for that to kind of meet your brand strategy and enhance the customer experience, so much the better. Leverage it. You can use all of these things to your own advantage if you can figure out how your customers want to hear from you. And then finally, I love this one, so I'm just going to take it. The basics never die. Best practices are paramount all the time, forever. You need to make sure that you get permission. You need to make sure you keep those lists clean. You let people opt out. You keep complaints low. You keep bounces low. You're just sending email to the people who want to receive it. And your big duty as a sender is figuring out who those people are and getting rid of the ones who do not want to hear from you. So follow those best practices because the new requirements are on top of those. They are not replacing them.
So true.
Love it. Love it. Reminds me of sunset policy, people. It's summertime. Make sure you clean out those lists every few months. Please, 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 please do that.
Yeah, in the gym we call it lean season. So it's lean season in the gym. It's lean season in that email list. So go ahead and validate your list. Make sure you're cleaning everything out. And since we are about to run into Q&A, and I just saw this pop up in chat, so I'll go ahead and say it. What's the best way to clean out a list? Use a validation provider.
Sending.
Yeah.
I say sending. If you're sending email, your list is clean. Like your ESP is managing bounces for you. So cleaning a list on top of sending to it, you should really only have to do that if it's someone that you haven't reached out to in a long time. If you have a very old list, first of all, get rid of it. If you can't get rid of it for some reason, then you could theoretically clean it. Like Natalie's saying, you can use a validation service that will check to see if the address is able to accept mail. That doesn't guarantee that the person will engage or that they signed up in the first place. So it's really only best to clean a list that you know has previously engaged and had a valid sign up. But again, you maybe don't need to go spend extra money on this because if you're actively sending and removing unengaged users and complaints and managing bounces, your list should actually be pretty clean to begin with.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's something that I think a lot of people kind of forget, right? Like if you're doing your due diligence, it does save you money long term. So if you haven't been doing your due diligence and you aren't sure, use a validation tool. If you have been and you feel pretty confident about the cleanliness of your list, then you're good. You're lean during lean season. I'm not to be a meathead, but yeah.
Lean and clean.
That said.
Favorite time of the day, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Make sure those questions are in the Q&A tab and make sure you upvote the ones that you want to answer the most because we only got so much time. We got 10 minutes left and then we got to move on with our day. So, all right. Let's take a look at those questions in the Q&A tab. And I'm going to, let's see. All right. And with the help of Natalie and Allison, we're going to take a look at these. We're going to stop sharing my favorite Indiana Jones. All right.
Let's see. Oh man, we have so many.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Good stuff.
Let's see.
Also, a major shout out to Amber and FF for helping us out on some of these more technical ones as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's see. Man, so many of these have also been answered by Amber and FA. I appreciate you guys. My goodness. Let's see. Oh man, you guys have been so on it. Are you seeing anything? Are you seeing any, Allison, that are standing out to you that haven't gotten answered yet?
They're all so answered. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for doing that.
There is this one, although I'm having trouble pinning it, but it was at the top for me. If we already have DMARC on Cloudflare, what does Mailgun's DMARC give us? So Mailgun's DMARC solution essentially allows you to ingest the DMARC reports and be able to see them within the platform. But if you already have it implemented into your work stream and you're like, I don't know that I want to like go like rustling any feathers, by all means, like keep your work stream as it is, unless it's broken, right? Like if it's like super overwhelming and you're really struggling with it, we can help compile some of those reports. And then if you want to take that a step further, Redshift can provide even further guidance that also works with the Mailgun platform. So just, it's one of those things where like, you know, I'm a big believer in like, don't rock the boat unless, you know, it's actively filling with water because rocking the boat will then make it fill, well, with more water, but then you can patch it, right? So like, it's kind of one of those things where if you do need to change it, do. But if you feel like your current solution is doing everything that it needs to, then I think you're fine.
We have one in here. I don't remember how to put it up on the screen. I'm so sorry. This is my first Goldcast one, but
Okay.
D says, I heard that DMARC record having P equals none is no longer acceptable by big ESPs. Is that true? If yes, how many percentile do we need to set it if DMARC is set to P equals quarantine? So to clarify terms a little bit, an ESP would be someone like us, Mailgun, a MailChimp, someone like that. You may be talking about mailbox providers, formerly known as ISPs. As far as we know, Gmail, Yahoo, Microsoft, those are kind of the big major ones, Apple as well. They have not yet said that they will not take P equals none. They are saying they want you to have a DMARC policy at all. They want you receiving those reports. They want you to kind of start monitoring and get a handle on what's going on. They have not yet said we're requiring a quarantine or a reject policy. However, because they are explicitly saying that they want you to implement DMARC, we have reason to suspect that in the future they may require a more aggressive policy. Of course, they can also do whatever they want with your mail, even if you don't explicitly tell them. They can still bounce you even if you don't say a P equals reject policy. So anyway, for now, we have no evidence that it's true that this is no longer acceptable. But I do think you should proceed as if that is true, because it could be true in the future. And kind of the thing that we reiterate is that today's recommendations are tomorrow's requirements. The things that they're telling us today, hey, this would be a good idea, are the things that, you know, maybe next time they roll this out, they're going to say, well, it's a requirement now. You should have been monitoring this whole time when we told you. So you don't need to worry about the percentage, but you should be thinking about monitoring to make sure that everything coming from your domain is actually coming from you, implementing policies so that mail that fails is rejected and getting there, but it's not yet a requirement.
Love it, love it, love it.
Oh, wait, there's a really good one. I could just
I was
off on
about
this.
Just call the name and I'll throw them up on
I
there.
wonder if both of our oohs are for the same, the same one.
Yeah. Natalie, go for it. Was it Justina's question?
No, I was actually going to talk about Raphael's question, but you go ahead first.
Okay, sorry. So I just saw Justina's in the chat, which is quick question. How do you see validity certification these days? Do you think it's still a strong signal in terms of credibility or deliverability impact? No, I don't think that. I feel bad about saying that. I know people who work there. I think they're great people. I value them. I want them to keep their jobs, but I have worked with so many senders that have not been certified and they've been totally fine. You can have really good deliverability without being certified. Certainly it can boost your results at Microsoft, but it's just not a must. It's not something I think you should have to pay extra for. I don't know how you would see the certification, and I personally don't find it important. I think it's a little bit of a talisman for some senders, or they've been used to having it. They feel really safe, like it's their safety net. They like having it. But I have worked with countless, I mean, not trying to brag here, folks, but I've worked with hundreds of really big brands that you've heard of that are not certified, and they're doing a great job. So I personally think you can skip it if you're trying to make room on your budget. If you really enjoy having it, or someone in your leadership team thinks it's valuable, by all means, don't call my name out and say that I told you to get rid of it. But I do think that it's something that you consider skipping. So thanks for letting me take that one. Hi, Justina. Glad you're here. And yeah, Natalie, go for it.
No, for sure. So Raphael asked how to avoid the others box on Microsoft and go to the focus box. So I have some good news and bad news for you. So when it comes to inbox tabs, whether that be at Microsoft or Gmail, it is all the inbox, right? And it is segmented that way due to really just like by the type of message that you have. So saying that you want to avoid a particular tab is not the best look, because then essentially what you're trying to do is like get around being classified as other. So then you're essentially trying to game your emails to be able to land like in the primary. So like my primary, for example, I really only like seeing like, receipts and then like emails from family, so on and so forth, right? Like, but if it's like a sales promotion or things like that, I go to that tab with intention to go see those things. If I want to go to my social tab to see all of those social updates, then I go there, right? So like, I think there's kind of this there's this sentiment with some senders that because you land in a specific tab, that means that is the reason why your emails aren't being opened or they aren't being engaged with. I don't think that that's true, right? Because I think plenty of email recipients go to the different areas of their inbox, and whether that be the focused area of the inbox or the primary or the notifications or things like that, those are broken out into those sections on purpose, to allow the recipient to like, one, have a bit of a breather and like already be able to kind of curate what they're seeing. So if you absolutely want to end up in the focused mailbox, then your emails kind of have to reflect what would land there. And if there's no way for you to do that without being disingenuous, I wouldn't worry about it, right? You're still landing in the inbox. It's not that you're landing in spam. And if you're struggling to increase your opens or your clicks, then maybe refresh the content a little bit. Take a look at your content strategy and see what you can do to change things up a bit and be able to improve engagements.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I actually have a friend who works at a different ESP, and she performed an experiment. This was the Gmail tabs rather than the Microsoft ones, but I think the experiment still stands. She was actually able to like isolate the emails so that she could get them to go to the Gmail primary tab rather than the promotions. And she would inform her customer, hey, here's what I figured out. If you strip this text, then you'll get there. By the time they would update the content, the filters would have updated too. The filters are constantly learning. They're not static. And so what works today may not work tomorrow. And so rather than spending your time trying to game the tabs, just send the content that your subscribers want, because they're ultimately in control of their mailbox. If they have a focused inbox, they want it there. They can turn it off if they don't. And so if your mail does not meet something that they are focused on, it's not going to go there. And that's not a problem. It's not a deliverability problem. It doesn't mean you have a bad reputation. You're just not like a one-to-one communication. You're not something that this particular user is prioritizing. And that doesn't mean it's universal. For some people, it might be in the focus, or it might be in the other, or it might be somewhere else. It really depends highly on that specific user and their historical engagement. So I just wouldn't spend too much time worrying about that, even though I know that's easier said than done, but trust us on that one.
Yeah, for sure.
Love
I think
it,
we
love it.
we have time for one more, or do we got to close out? We got a minute.
Unfortunately, we got to close out. We got 1 minute. But ladies and gentlemen, we got to give a big, massive round of applause to Natalie and Allison for joining us today, for answering all these amazing questions. Some of these questions we didn't get to answer today, and so we were actually going to try and reach out to y'all and get you some answers on some of this stuff. But first and foremost, Natalie, where can the amazing people of the email world follow along with everything that you got going on in email?
LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. I know that M posted my profile, but for all things professional, you will find me there, and for all things email. If you want to add me, feel free. Just be sure to like add a little message saying that like you watched me here. And if you have any sort of questions, would love to hear from you. But yeah, cool deal.
And Allison, where can the people see your amazing, hilarious memes about deliverability?
Oh, don't oversell it. They're not that good, but they're on LinkedIn. Follow me there. You don't have to leave a note. I just love you guys so much. I'm happy to hear from you, but I typically post every Wednesday a deliverability related meme with an explanation. You're welcome to borrow or steal those if it helps you explain things to yourself or a sender that you're working with. And just thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to get to do this with you guys. Natalie, Thomas, you're such a treat. I'm glad that I work here with you guys. Thank you everyone for coming.
Love it.
Thanks everybody.
Make sure you give me a follow on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only Thomas T-Bird Canarian on there. Also, we have another episode of Emails Not Dead coming out really soon with, I think Travis Hazelwood is here, actually. Shout out to him.
Yay!
He's actually in the episode as well. But yeah, we'll be kind of giving a recap and talking about everything that we learned and stuff like that. Everyone be good to each other out there. The world's getting smaller and smaller every day, but we're on the same planet. So make sure you give each other a hug and take care of each other out there.
Pet a dog.
Keep an eye out for, exactly. Go touch some grass after this meeting, ladies and gentlemen. Keep an eye out. We'll be having another Deliverability Academy coming to you soon. So everyone can be good to each other out there. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Stay excellent, gang. Bye.